Hello, friend. Thanks for joining me for another book chat. Today, let's spend some time with The Lady in the Lake, some hard-boiled detective fiction from Raymond Chandler. The Lady in the Lake. So, this is the fourth of the Chandler novels that I've read. I previously read The Big Sleep, Farewell, My Lovely, and The High Window. So, I will link to those chats down in the details below. But Raymond Chandler here was just a master of 20th century American hard-boiled detective fiction, in my opinion. And I just have so much fun with his books. So, what's this one about? Before we kick it off, I want to give a spoiler warning. This is going to be a spoiler-free chat. And so, for a detective story, I will be very careful to not give away anything that I think would detract from a first-time reader's experience with this book. So, The Lady in the Lake by Raymond Chandler. The book was written in 1943, and this is set in the same time frame, and there are several references to World War II, which was ongoing at the time. The book says here, and most men can stand what they've got to stand when it steps up and looks them straight in the eye, like they're doing all over the world right now. Right in the middle kind of World War II here. But the story takes place in Los Angeles, in and around Los Angeles, as well as in a small mountain town that's not too terribly far from LA. And our main character is, of course, Philip Marlowe, the detective that's in the previous three of the novels that I've read. And in this book, as it opens, Marlowe is called to the office of a very successful businessman, Mr. Kingsley. The reader, along with Mr. Kingsley, is introduced to the hard-boiled Philip Marlowe right away in the book. And, Marlowe's very direct with Mr. Kingsley, asking him very pointed questions. Mr. Kingsley says, "I don't like your manner," Kingsley said in a voice you could have cracked a Brazil nut on. "That's all right," I said. "I'm not selling it." Marlowe's always good for a wisecrack, and that's part of what makes reading these books so entertaining. So Kingsley ends up hiring Marlowe to find his wife, who has gone missing. Kingsley has gotten recently a telegram, supposedly from his wife, letting him know that she has decided to run off to Mexico to get a divorce with her gigolo boyfriend, whose name is Lavery. So Lavery, it turns out, though, saw later, is still in L.A., so therefore, right, the mystery. Lavery, the gigolo, is described as, "The man was a hefty, dark, handsome lad with fine shoulders and legs, sleek dark hair and white teeth, 6 feet of a standard type of homewrecker, arms to hold you close, and all his brains in his face." I just love the lingo in these books. It's so fun. So Mrs. Crystal Kingsley was not exactly an ideal wife. We figure that out right away. In addition to carrying on with her gigolo boyfriend more or less right under the nose of her husband, she's got some other issues, among them, apparently, kleptomania. Mr. Kingsley tells Marlowe, "Among her other activities," Kingsley said grimly, "my wife occasionally finds time to lift things from department stores. I think it's just a sort of delusion of grandeur she gets when she has been hitting the bottle too hard. But it happens, and we have had some pretty nasty scenes in managers' offices." So, we know that Crystal Kingsley could be involved here in lots more than just running off with her gigolo boyfriend. So, it sort of enhances the mystery. The last known location of Mrs. Kingsley was in the Kingsley's mountain cabin in this small town not too far from L.A. Marlowe heads up there right away to investigate, since that's her last known location, and there he meets a man named Bill Chess. Bill Chess is the caretaker of this cottage in the mountains up there, the cabin. We find out that his wife, Muriel, has also gone missing. Bill Chess tells Marlowe about Muriel. "She was this one swell kid," he said softly, "a little sharp in the tongue sometimes, but one swell kid. It was love at first sight with me and Muriel. I met her in a joint at Riverside a year and 3 months ago. Not the kind of joint a guy would expect to meet a girl like Muriel, but that's how it happened. Yeah, really, Bill? I mean, so we're a little suspicious of Muriel here, too. So I don't want to give away too much more about the plot than that because it is a detective story. And before it's all said and done, there is more than one murder in this book, and as well as some conspiracies, some various other criminal actions, as well as cops getting involved for good or bad. More on that here in a bit. So I won't give away anything else around the plot, but just some thoughts about the book. I love these hard-boiled detectives from this era. I love the settings, that we find ourselves in, and I really, really love the lingo, as I mentioned, the slang, of this era. There's an exchange between Marlowe and Mr. Kingsley's secretary that really illustrates Marlowe's hard-boiled nature. He says, "Look, Miss Fromsett, I'd like to be smooth in the distance and subtle about all this, too. I'd like to play this sort of game just once, the way somebody like you would like it to be played, but nobody will let me. Not the clients, not the cops, nor the people I play against. However hard I try to be nice, I always end up with my nose in the dirt and my thumb feeling for somebody's eye." So he's dealing with the sordid underworld that most of us don't want to see and we don't want to acknowledge even exists. And so he has developed this hard-boiled shell, right? And so when he's investigating, he's very direct. He asks questions people don't want asked and they don't want to answer, and he needs to know the truth, and they need to tell a truth that they don't want to tell, that nobody wants to tell most of the time. And so this is the world that Marlowe inhabits, and I just think it's so much fun to join him on one of his investigations. As Marlowe is investigating the crimes, he makes a point that just because someone is nervous or acting guilty, it doesn't necessarily mean they're guilty. Marlowe says he was pretty nervous yesterday for a man who has nothing to be afraid of. But, of course, it isn't only the guilty who are afraid. Of course not. Someone comes in and asks you a bunch of questions and you think that the signs are pointing to you having done this crime. That's going to make you afraid if you did the crime, and that's going to make you afraid if you didn't do the crime, because you're going to think, they think I did this. So you're going to be afraid either way, and he's dealing with this on a daily basis. Marlowe has something of a love-hate relationship with the cops. In general, he does not trust them. This has been a common theme that has run through all of the books. One of the good cops he deals with in this particular book has a really interesting quote that I think was so fun. He says, "Police business," he said almost gently, "is a hell of a problem. It's a good deal like politics. It asks for the highest type of men, and there's nothing in it to attract the highest type of men. So we have to work with what we get. And we get things like this." I never thought of it that way, but, police need to attract a really good type of person. They really attract, ideally, they're supposed to attract kind of an ideal person, a person who wants to see justice done. That's not always who they attract, though, among their ranks, and the same goes for politicians. Ideally, we want them to have our best interests at heart and to work for the common good, and that's usually not, or often not, what happens. And so I thought that was a great sort of, a great fun sort of like connection there. I think I'm going to leave the chat there just because I don't want to give away any of the plot twists or turns. I did establish sort of who the main characters are in this story. It's a couple of different wives gone missing, but the trail from that leads into these other avenues that we discover, these other crimes going on that have gone on in the past, and maybe going on now. And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun. I will leave the chat there, though. My next chat is going to switch gears a bit. I am going to chat about some nautical fiction, Master and Commander by Patrick O'Brien. I have finished this already, so I will have a chat on this coming up very soon. I will also in the future have some more Raymond Chandler. I have several more of his novels to get through, as well as some other authors from this era that I want to get to as well. So there will be more Raymond Chandler coming up, as well as hardboiled detective fiction from the mid-20th century. All right, until next time, take care. Bye.